What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video, I'm showcasing the 10 best exotic weapons in Destiny 2. If you've been watching my series, you know that I have already showcased the 10 best exotic weapons for primaries, specials, and heavies, so I thought it would be fun to put them all against each other and see which weapons reign supreme as the best overall exotic weapons in Destiny 2. For this video, I took all aspects of Destiny into account, but mainly being a solo GM player, my solo bias will probably show. So other people may rank other weapons higher because they do more in raid or dungeon content, and in those types of activities, enemies are a bit weaker, so certain weapons can shine more. But for me, I do play all areas of PvE, so I tried to make it as balanced a list as possible. So with that out of the way, let's look at the best exotic weapons Destiny 2 has to offer. Believe it or not, there are over 120 exotic weapons in the game today, so there's a shit ton to choose from, and narrowing them down to just 10 is not easy. But I hope you like the list. At number 10 we have Sunshot. This thing is an ad clear monster in content like raids and dungeons, and even in Grandmasters it hits like a truck and is great for ad clear. It can scorch targets and even cause ignitions if it spreads enough scorch. It has explosive rounds as well, so it mitigates damage fall off, which is really nice. And it's the only 150 RPM hand cannon in the entire game. On top of this, it's solar, so it is one of, if not the best weapon for easily extending Restoration and Radiant with Ember of Empyrean. With all of these factors combined, it makes it one of the absolute best primary weapons in the entire game. It's a monster and a great weapon to kick off this list. Up next, at number 9, we have another dominant primary weapon in Wishender. This thing was mid as hell for years and years after it first came out. It was the original dungeon exotic dropping from a secret mission in the Shattered Throne back in the Forsaken days. But over a year ago, Bungie gave it intrinsic anti-barrier rounds and made it hit like a truck, and the rest is history. It can one-shot barrier shields even in GM difficulty, which is extremely valuable. The only other weapons that can really do this are Ariana's Vow or Arbalest, and they are special weapons. This is a primary. It also overpenetrates targets, meaning each arrow that you shoot actually does 3 damage instances. This is amazing for building up super energy very quickly. But it also means it hits very hard, so it can one-shot most red bars even in GM content. And it is a consistent source of damage even on boss targets in GMs if you're playing from a far distance. So combining its safety factor of being able to hit for huge damage at a long distance, plus its intrinsic stunning capability, it is well deserving of a top 10 placement. At number 8, we have our first special weapon in Icebreaker. If you know, you know. A lot of people think this weapon is bad because it doesn't deal good DPS, but it is not a DPS sniper. Use Still Hunt or Cloud Strike if you want that. This is what we call a utility weapon through and through. First off, it holds 10 rounds in reserves and in the magazine. That means you never have to reload this weapon, which for me is a massive positive as I hate reloading. And then it has amazing subclass synergy. It can cause ignitions when it shoots stasis crystals or frozen enemies, and it is easier than ever to freeze enemies thanks to Prismatic and some really strong stasis themed exotics that we just got, so if you build around this weapon, it becomes a monster. But I haven't even gotten to the best part. It has infinite ammo. As long as you are getting kills in any way outside of the sniper rifle, it will generate ammo. This is exceptionally easy to do. So you basically have an infinite ammo sniper that hits like a truck and can cause ignitions. Its one downside is it does fire very slowly, but that's fine. It just takes a bit of getting used to. And what it lacks in fire rate, it makes up for with really hard hitting damage. But yeah, Bungie cooked with this weapon. They have done an awesome job of reprising some D1 classics, and this one is no exception. Up next, at number 7, we have another newcomer that was just introduced in episode Revenant in Alethanum. Much like Icebreaker, this one can do what very few weapons in the game can do, and that is bypass ammo restrictions. So Icebreaker can generate its own ammo, but this one can generate either special or heavy ammo for your entire fire team. It is a stasis primary breach-loaded grenade launcher, and it actually hits really hard, especially with the catalyst, which gives it one for all. So this weapon can take out adds with ease, and then if you use it on a high health target like bosses or champions, it will make a ton of floating orbs, which gives its vestigial alchemy charges so you can generate an ammo brick of your choosing. So you can fire off a special or heavy ammo brick. Sure, they are only finder brick sized, so they don't give you a ton of ammo, but it is a way to consistently give you ammo if the game is being stubborn and not giving you drops. This is a very strong trait that nothing else in the game really has. This can be crucial in a day 1 raid scenario or many other situations. Hell, even solo dungeons you could abuse this. It also has physics similar to Mountaintop where you can use it to rocket boost to get around quicker and jump to high areas. This is fun as hell, but also serves some practical purposes at times. So with all these factors taken into consideration, it is certainly worthy of a placement on this list. At number 6 is a favorite of mine, and that is Parasite. First of all, the weapon design is cool as hell. I'm no lore junkie, but basically you have a hive worm in your gun and you shoot this worm out and it does huge damage. You can stack up Worm's Hunger to times 20, and then it basically becomes the highest damage dealing gun in the game. It hits incredibly hard, giving it great burst DPS, which is meta on a short damage phase boss like Atrax, but it is no one-trick pony. That times 20 shot can also deal huge AoE damage to take out heaps of adds. It is perfect for solo dungeons or grandmasters, as there are always lots of adds and no teammates to take your kills, so you can stack up the big shot very quickly. I've used this in many solo runs from exotic missions to nightfalls, and it always performs well. It's just been an awesome weapon since the day it was introduced, and it even got a glow up recently when Bungie increased ammo reserves across the board, giving this thing even more total damage. At number 5, we have another super cool exotic that likely has some cool lore attached to it, and Whisper of the Worm. Again, I don't know much about the lore, but I think it has something to do with a worm god. The exotic mission for this weapon is also what made me fall in love with Destiny back in Warmind. And back then, this was the best weapon in the game. And then it got changed and nerfed and reworked over time, and now it's right back on top of the heap. And at least for me, it's one of the top 5 exotics in the game. Many weapons that are on this list have a lot of utility, making them versatile and good in many situations. This is not one of those weapons. This is a one-trick pony. You plant yourself, aim down sights, wait to proc box breathing, or whispered breathing in this case, and then go to town on a single target until it dies. What this weapon lacks in versatility, it makes up for in pure firepower. It hits like a truck, and thanks to the white nail perk, as long as you're hitting your crits, you'll be able to shoot indefinitely until you run out of reserves. This weapon used to refund all its ammo, which was a bit broken, but now it's craftable and you can throw field prep on it, so it still does incredible total damage as well as very respectable DPS. Obviously, you need to be accurate to get the full benefit of this weapon, but if you do that, then you'll be cooking. So just given its pure damage potential, especially at long range, it makes this thing a monster. I've taken it through solo GMs and it performs wonderfully in the right build and scenarios. And it's also a great DPS option on certain raid bosses. It's just a super cool and super powerful weapon, and it's sexy as hell. At number 4, we have one of my favorite weapons in the game in Revision 0. So I just spoke about versatility, and this weapon is extremely versatile. It hits like a truck on red bars. It is one of the highest damaging primaries in the game for DPS on red bars. It has 2 firing modes. The 2 burst option is the one that I like because it hits like a truck and is better at range, which really helps in solo GMs. But the 4 burst mode allows you to stack up its alternate fire mode very quickly. So it can fire sniper shots when you build up the targeting data meter. These sniper shots hit like a heavy weapon. You can also craft it to suit your playstyle. Personally, I really like high handling and then 4 times the charm and Vorpal weapon. It has intrinsic anti-barrier, which allows it to deal with barrier champions, and Vorpal makes it hit even harder. And then the sniper shots also benefit from this extra damage, and being a primary, Vorpal weapon is a 20% damage bonus. This gives it massive utility against champions. And being a primary, it even works with Whisper of Rending to hit even harder on frozen targets. So yeah, this thing has so much utility and is so good in GM content that it easily earns a top 5 placement. On to number 3, we actually have the weapon I ranked at number 1 last year in Dragon's Breath. I've spoken time and time again about how valuable damage over time is, and this weapon deals great damage over time. But it can also apply Scorch and proc ignitions, giving it an even greater benefit. So it's a rocket launcher with incredible ad clear and very high total damage. But it's definitely not a rocket that you want to spam. Rather, you shoot it once and then deal damage with your other weapons. This is great in GMs on champions, and it is also really nice on bosses. Ignition damage cannot stack though, so it's not great if a whole fire team is using it. But if just one person is using it, it will do really well. And that is where my solo bias starts to show. I love it so much as a solo player. It has great ammo economy, very deep reserves, and given how it functions, it deals huge damage if you wait for composite propellant to hit max stacks. And when it does, it also auto reloads itself, which is another thing I love about it. So yeah, this weapon is still a monster and deserving of a top 3 placement. So before we get to the top 2, I want to give some honorable mentions. Grand Overture would have been 11 on this list, and it just missed the cut. It It has obviously risen to prominence with the release of the latest dungeon thanks to its huge burst damage, great ease of use, and incredible total damage. It is perfect for the Corrupted Puppeteer thanks to being the longest damage phase in the entire game. On top of this, the missiles can blind, which is really useful in GM content, and it makes it great against unstoppable champions. So yeah, it's a strong weapon for sure, but sadly, I just felt the other weapons were a little bit better. Leviathan's Breath is another versatile weapon with respectable total damage and DPS that just missed the list. Anarchy is also really good, and I love Ager's Scepter, but again, not quite good enough to be a top 10 exotic. And for a primary shoutout, Graviton Lance also goes really hard in the right situation. So yeah, I just wanted to shout those weapons out. Now onto number 2, we have Buried Bloodline. Regrettably, when I made this list last year, I did have this weapon, but I hadn't played with it much at the time. But yeah, once I did, I quickly realized the amazing potential of this weapon. It is able to proc Devour for you on any class, which is incredibly powerful. Devour is one of the strongest verbs in the game, so being able to get it basically for free from your weapon is absolutely amazing. And then when Devour is rolling, you can also proc Weaken on a target. Again, this is incredibly strong. Not only are the Weaken and Devour effects very strong, but they also free up build options. Now you don't have to run a Weaken grenade or some other form of Weaken, and you don't have to build into Devour. So the functionality that this weapon provides is top tier. On top of this, rocket sidearms are just very strong in general, and so strong that the legendary ones had their reserve ammo nerfed. But this one has deeper reserves than all the rest, which makes it really good for total damage, or for using it for a really easy ad clear as it hits super hard. You could easily use this weapon as a primary in a double special loadout. So for all these reasons, it takes the runner-up spot as the best exotic weapon in Destiny 2. So what weapon is better than that? Well, in my opinion, Choir of One is better than all the rest simply for its versatility. Double Special has been nerfed, but this weapon allows you to easily run Double Special still. I took this thing through a solo GM and it performed beautifully. Granted, it released a little too hot and Bungie nerfed its hipfire damage and total reserves, but even with those changes, it is still incredibly strong. I've been using it for my weekly Garden of Salvation runs and it performs amazingly. When ADS, it shoots like a scout rifle and can easily 1 or 2 shot most red bar ads. And then if you have a champion or yellow bar to deal with, simply hipfire it to take them out quickly and easily. You can main this thing like a primary in most raid encounters if you don't need an exotic heavy for damage. I'm serious, thanks to rally flags, you always have full ammo, and no encounters really last long enough to make you expend all your ammo in this thing, so long as you aren't constantly spamming hipfire shots. And like I said, this isn't really necessary outside of high health targets. The hipfire shot does very respectable damage for bait and switch rotations on a dungeon or raid boss as well. So with it being able to function as a primary weapon with the output of a strong special weapon, it earns the top spot. The utility it provides is just amazing. It's a jack of all trades and a strong one at that. And that is it for the list. Let me know down below what you thought of my rankings. Like I said, there are a ton of exotic weapons, so it is hard to narrow the best ones down, but I tried to rank them for overall utility in every aspect of the game that PvE offers. If you found the video entertaining or informative, then a like would be greatly appreciated, and subscribe so you don't miss my future uploads. Also, I have a community Discord and I'm streaming more on Twitch now, so check those out if you're interested. Links are in the description. Lastly, if you made it this far, you're a real one. Thanks so much for watching to the end. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.